Hello my dear friends and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Joycey Joy and today in this lecture we will discuss about the lapses in blood screening. Let us first look into the current affair. A 23-year-old pregnant woman in the state of Tamil Nadu tested positive for HIV after receiving a unit of blood at a government hospital blood bank. So this is not the only incident. Previously also there were many incidents which were reported that after a patient receives blood from any public hospital or from any blood bank, the patient is affected with any of the diseases. So with this current affair, let us look into the lapses of blood screening in India. Let us take the Tamil Nadu case as the recent example and let us examine this issue in detail. Now let us see what is the mandate or what are the rules and regulations in this regard. Testing all donated blood units for a number of transfusion transmissible infections including HIV is mandatory in India. So all the donated blood units must be tested for any transfusion or transmissible infections, which includes HIV also. And the ELISA test is used in all blood banks to screen HIV. So the name of the test is ELISA test. It is to screen HIV. The ELISA test has very high levels of sensitivity to diagnose samples positive for the virus. So this is a very effective or efficient test in order to test the samples whether it has positive viruses for HIV. And since 2004, the NACO guidelines are followed. NACO is National AIDS Control Organization, and since 2004, NACO guidelines have been followed. And along with all these, all the blood banks are required to obtain from the donors a written consent on their wish to be informed about a positive test result. So a person after donating the blood, he has to give a written consent that after the blood screening, he is willing to receive the information or the report of the test or the blood screening. And in case if the blood is tested positive for HIV, the blood banks are required to refer the donors to designated voluntary counseling and testing centers. So if a person donates his blood and in the screening, if it is found he or she is HIV positive, then the blood bank itself has to initiate to send that donor to a voluntary counseling and testing center. And this voluntary counseling and testing center will disclose that this person has HIV positive and will provide the necessary counseling to the person. And the role of VCTC or the voluntary counseling and testing centers is broader, that after the patient visits the VC and a further test is taken in the VCTC, that is voluntary counseling and testing centers, VCTCs are required to inform the blood bank of a donor regarding the donor status, because the VCTC will again do a confirmatory test. So a second level of test will be done at the VCTC. So after the confirmatory test is done in the VCTC, it is the responsibility of the voluntary counseling and the testing centers to inform the blood bank whether it has been confirmed, whether the person is tested HIV positive or not. And once the confirmatory message that the person is tested HIV positive or any other infectious diseases, the blood bank has to be informed and blood bank will initiate measures in order to make sure that this person, this donor, will not donate the blood again in the future. So this is the procedure that has to be followed for blood screening and blood donation. Now let us understand what happened in the recent case. In the Tamil Nadu case, we have seen that a 23-year-old pregnant woman was tested positive for HIV after receiving a unit of blood from the government hospital blood bank. So let us see what had happened in the recent Tamil Nadu incident. So in the Tamil Nadu case, what happened is that the donor's HIV positive status became known in the year 2016 when that donor, the same person, donated blood at the same blood bank, and according to the guidelines, the donor have to give a consent that he is ready to be informed about the status of his blood screening report. So in this case, what happened? The donor donated the blood in the same blood bank where the lady, 23-year-old pregnant lady, received the blood. So donor donated the blood in the same blood bank and the particular donor had consented to be informed of a positive result. And it is said that the blood bank tried to contact the donor in 2016 to inform him about the HIV positive status. But they could not get the donor in contact. And again what happened? Recently the same donor had found out elsewhere that he was HIV positive and he dutifully contacted the hospital. But by then his blood, the recent donation, had already been transfused to the pregnant woman. So after this incident, the donor himself consumed poison and he passed away. So this is what happened in Tamil Nadu recently. So taking this into consideration, let us understand what has to be done in blood screening. First of all, the blood banks in India have a success rate of less than 50% in contacting the donors testing positive for transfusion transmissible infections. So in the guidelines, we have seen that testing of all the donated blood units for a number of transfusion transmissible infections, including HIV, is mandatory. And even though this test is carried out, what happens is that the blood banks in India have a lesser success rate, or a 50% success rate only in contacting the donors testing positive for any transfusion or transmissible infections. This means that only a half of the consented donors are contactable, and even though the blood banks are able to contact 50% or half of the donors, only a few of them visit a VCTC. VCTC is Voluntary Counseling and Testing Centers. So the NACO, National AIDS Control Organization, should address the lapses in screening procedures and should find out a viable alternative to contact them without compromising the donor's identity. So, NACO is the National AIDS Control Organization, and it has to come up with feasible options that will address the issue of contacting the donors. And NACO should also focus on creating awareness among the donors to visit a VCTC in order to confirm their HIV status and take further actions. Now let us try to attempt a UPSC Mains model question. So question is, implementation of the HIV AIDS Prevention and Control Act is a positive and much awaited development. Discuss. So this is the question. I will give you a broad outline on how to answer this question. So everyone please try to attempt this question and please send me your answers to joyce.studyiq@gmail.com. So here the directive word is discuss. So you will have to bring out a complete picture of the issue, both the positive as well as the negative side. And the question demands you to detail in what would be the positive implications of implementation of this act and how this is a positive development. So I will give you a structure for your answer. You can begin with the introduction. And in the introduction, you can write a few lines about HIV and AIDS Act. And as you progress, the second paragraph should contain the details about the notification of the act. You can also mention the positive developments or how they are positive in nature. And you have to give a conclusion. You should form a fair and a balanced conclusion on the above issue. So this is the broad structure. Please attempt this question and send your answers to joyce.studyiq@gmail.com. And if you have any other queries regarding your UPSC preparations, you can get in touch with me on my Facebook page or you can email me at joyce.studyiq@gmail.com. Thank you.